Police say that attackers beheaded and dismembered more than 50 people in northern Mozambique's Cabo Delgado province over the past 3 days. The General of the Mozambique police said that ISIL-linked fighters had attacked several villages, killing civilians, abducting women and children and burning down homes. Witnesses told local media the assailants herded residents onto a football field where the killings were carried out. Security forces in the gas-rich Cabo Delgado province have been fighting the armed group since 2017. Angola and Mozambique researcher in the Africa division at Human Rights Watch, Zenaida Machado, has been keeping an ear on the ground, and she joins us now via Skype. Thanks so much indeed for joining us, and welcome to the program. Sadly, this news that we're hearing is not uncommon anymore.
No, it's not. And unfortunately, it's going to be more and more common. The reason being that for many months since this conflict started in October 2017, there's been a ban on coverage. Media cannot go to certain areas, as researchers neither, and security forces themselves cannot reach certain areas because of the level of violence that the insurgents are causing, as well as humanitarian groups that are unable to reach people to help them. So we have known in the past weeks that there is over 1 million people that are trapped in areas that are unsafe. Now, these people have found their way out now. They are coming to the beaches with boats, and they're beginning to tell the stories of what is going on. So the most recent case of beheadings happened in a district called Muidumbi that we understand has been under attack since last week, and that security forces have now been able to speak to people who managed to run away from these areas, some of them who have been living in the bush for like a week or so, and they're beginning to tell us the stories of the worrisome abuses that they've been facing in the hands of the insurgents.
These insurgents, are they growing in strength as time passes?
That seems to be the case, Peter. You remember the case of the town of Mocimboa da Praia that was temporarily seized by the insurgents. We understand at this stage, and with confirmed information from security forces, that Mocimboa da Praia is still seized by the insurgents. The same thing is happening to Muidum. Since last week, they have been fighting the security forces, as there is no sign of the fighting ending, and it seems that they are gaining strength. In either case, what we are seeing is that the level of abuse they are also committing against civilians is gruesome. It started, for example, the issue of beheadings. Initially, they would target specific people that they believed were the ones cooperating with security forces and with government officials. Now it has become widespread. It looks like they are using beheads as a weapon of war against the government.
So what do we know about what their end goal is?
We don't know at this stage. What people are saying is that those who arrived in the village that they were told them that the aim was to create some sort of a jihadi state. But that's what we are hearing from the victims. We cannot confirm that information. What we also know at this stage, it seems that there is a deliberate plan to force people away from the villages and the houses. In certain cases, we understand that the insurgents even give people money for transport. And transport means a boat that will take them from those areas to safe places like Pemba or Ibo Island.
The authorities, you say that they do not allow journalists to go near this area. Why is that? Do they not want it reported? What would be the motivation for that?
They will tell you, initially they used to tell us that it was for security reasons. Now they will tell you that there is no ban and anyone is free to go and report on what is going on in Cabo Delgado. But for us who work there and need to work there, we know very well that the ban is there, informally, but it's there. Even to talk with people that are arriving on the boats is difficult because there are police officers that don't allow our collaborators and activists to get in touch with people physically and talk to them about what has been going on. We believe that it is because the government is deliberately trying to hide their own abuses on the ground, because human rights abuses in Cabo Delgado are not only committed and perpetrated by insurgents. We have documented cases by security forces, namely arbitrary arrests, intimidation, ill treatment of detainees, allegations of summary executions, some of them that have been presented in videos that Amnesty International and us as Human Rights Watch have shared widely on social media. So they don't want the abuse that their forces are committing to be exposed to the world outside.
And managing the crisis in terms of trying to deal with the militants, has it become too much for the authorities to deal with, much in the same way as Boko Haram was allowed to grow in Nigeria?
I think at this stage, the challenge of the Mozambican government is how to manage the two crises. One is a clear conflict that they've never experienced before, and with a group that seems to be growing on strength day by day. The other one is the humanitarian crisis that is emerging from this conflict. You have people arriving, for example, at Pakitekete, it's a beach in Pemba, every day. We are talking about between 4 to 6 boats arriving. We are talking about something like 1,000 of people arriving every day. There are not enough tents to accommodate all those people. Locals in Pemba are having to accommodate people that they don't know. 50 people in one house, for example. There's no enough food. So the government is clear with too much in their hands. And I wonder how long it will take for them to publicly recognize that they might have lost control of this whole crisis.
Do we have any idea how many lives have been lost since 2017 and how many people have been displaced by this humanitarian crisis you're describing?
We don't have official numbers from the government, but independent sources estimate that over 2,000 people have been killed and 300,000 people have been displaced so far.
I mean, the question then becomes, how is it that with so much loss of life, how is it that the African Union and SADC perhaps haven't got troops on the ground there?
We as Human Rights Watch don't usually call for that to happen. What we instead would want to see from those two organizations is a commitment that the government of Mozambique will get the support it needs to help the Mozambican people that are suffering, and they will also ensure that the human rights of those victims, as well as of those who are suspected insurgents, will be respected throughout the conflict.
But with such loss of life, something significant needs to be done. And it looks as if the Mozambican authorities, as you say, have got too much on their plate.
That is a fact, Peter, that is a fact. But what needs to be done is something that the Mozambican government needs to establish. They have the control of the territory. They are the ones that have been elected democratically to take care of their people, and they should be able to come up with a plan on how they intend to address, one, the conflict in one hand, and on the second part, and without necessarily saying that one is more important than the other, how they are going to ensure that the ordinary Mozambican doesn't feel that much the impact of this conflict.
Cabo Delgado is mineral rich, and I wonder, is that being affected by this conflict?
Ironical, no, because the attacks have not yet reached those areas of exploration of gas. What we know is that the villages that are near the areas of gas exploration have almost become empty. People have run away. And that's why we believe that there is a deliberate plan to chase people away from those areas. What is the reason behind that? I cannot explain at this stage. But the multinationals, the areas of exploration of gas are still safe areas so far.
And these militants, I mean, are they so brazen that they claim responsibility and they declare that this is who they are and this is what they're doing as they kill all these people?
Whenever it's possible for them, they actually film videos exhibiting their trophies of war. And in other cases, because they have already pledged alliance to ISIS, the claims of victory are made by ISIS on their normal ways of communication through social media or websites.
What sometimes happens is that young men, boys get taken into these militant groups. Is this something that you've been witnessing in Mozambique?
It is something that we are more and more getting across of. We have been able to speak to people who gave accounts of children being kidnapped. There is also a concern that the number of girls in the camps, or the number of girls that have managed to escape the conflict, is reduced compared to other humanitarian crises. But again, all of that are still reports, are still rumors, and we are in the process of investigating more, document, and whenever possible, we'll be able to come back to you and other media groups and give more detailed information.
All right. At one stage, South Africa was warned not to get involved in this conflict. Is there still danger for neighboring states, or is this group focused entirely in the northern part of Mozambique?
If I was any of the countries that neighbors Mozambique, I would be cautious not to help or intervene, not to understand what is going on in Mozambique. You cannot see the house of your neighbor burning and assume that the fire will never get to your house. So even if that intervention may not necessarily be with use of troops or anything similar, there are many ways in which South Africa can support Mozambique through SADC, bilaterally, and what I would advise those countries is to come up with a plan on how to take care of civilians and how to minimize the impact of this conflict on the ordinary people.
All right, Zenaida, Machado, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed for that pretty comprehensive update. Thanks so much indeed for your time.
Thank you, Peter.